I on there? Okay. Before I begin, I think some of you heard that the sad news that we lost a trustee, a former trustee. We're all here. So I wanted to read a statement about trustee emeritus Don Viss. He served on the YCCD board from 2010 to 2018, and he was board chair during the 2014-15 year. He represented YCCD trustee area 2, encompassing Oakdale, Riverbank, Empire, and his hometown of Waterford. Before being elected to the YCCD Board of Trustees, he served as a board member on the Waterford Unified School District from 79 to 95, so 16 years there first. And then following a 2-year break, he was elected to the Stanislaus County Board of Education from 1997 to 2005. So he had a long history as an advocate for education in our area. So I'd like to have a moment of silence in his honor, and then we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so the report out from closed session. The board voted 6-1 to adopt a newly formatted management salary schedule to reflect the doctoral stipend. The motion was made by Margie. It was seconded by Darren. The motion carried. There was one no vote. That was Andy Martini. Okay, thank you very much. We are now up to the approval of the minutes of September 11th.
So moved.
With corrections, correct?
There is a correction that was put
That's corrected.
at your station.
I can't, is your mic on? I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Me now?
Yes. Okay, so,
I messed up because I usually say if there's no additions or corrections.
okay, so do we have a second?
Yes.
Darren? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Motion carries. We're at 3.4. Are there any public comments? No? Okay, thank you. We are now at 4.1, Board Finance Committee report.
Yes, good evening. The Board Finance Committee met on October 1st. The only item up for discussion was the budget augmentation. And I want to say a thank you to the various constituency groups that were there representing various employee groups and other people from the district that gave their input. It was very helpful. And then, as you know, that we basically just went over the information along with finance staff and other district staff. And then that was carried forward to the following day when the board met in the special meeting on October the 2nd and approved the budget augmentation. So are there any questions? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. 4.2, Board Policy Committee report with Trustee DeMartini.
Thank you, Chair Biggs. On this Monday, the Policy and Procedure Board Committee met, and we went through all of the first readings, second readings of the policies that are on the agenda tonight. I think it makes more sense to discuss our suggestions for change on these policies at that time. So I and the other two members will discuss some of our thinking and the changes. But also at our meeting, we had some due process discussion, and I just wanted to try and politely express the frustration that this committee is having, that it's been over 2 months since we met with the attorney who is going to, look at some of our requests. And last month, we gave her some sample work. And I'm not questioning that she has other things to do, but I guess I'm sort of looking to the other board members, all of us here, do you agree that we should ask the chancellor to ask her to work at a faster pace?
Sure.
Well, I, for one, have felt very strongly about completing this work on due process. As Trustee Rojas and I have talked on numerous occasions about completing this. This has been something that we've felt was an important issue that we've worked on for a long time. Trustee DeMartini kind of took up the flag on this. Alan McKissick has been very involved as well from a faculty employee standpoint on working on this. And at this point, I'm left confused with two thoughts. Either the attorneys, because there have been more than one, don't fully understand or comprehend what it is the board is trying to do. I've always felt that we need to have just a statement of guiding principles that how we want to fairly treat our employees. From my standpoint, I don't think it's that complicated. So I don't know if the attorneys are not understanding what it is this board wants to do, or they are stonewalling it or slowing it down from a position of overt caution. Those are the only two thoughts I can come up with at this point. I don't think we need to make this super complicated and whatnot. We just need to have a statement of principle that we're going to treat employees fairly. That's where I'm coming from. So I agree with the chair of the policy committee that we need to get this done. It's starting to be kind of embarrassing that we can't get this item done, and we've been talking about it for a long time. I think glaciers are moving faster than this, I think.
Thank you, Darren.
I totally agree with Darren on this particular issue. I don't really understand what the hangup is. We've tossed this around now for probably over 2 years. And I don't know what the bottom line is. I don't even understand it, so I can imagine what the attorneys feel like. So I think it is something that we need to come to a conclusion on so that we can move on.
Thank you.
And I'll ask, how do the employee groups feel about this? I know Alan has reached out to obviously his peers, but I want to hear from classified. I want to hear from LTAC. I want to hear from other groups. I even want to hear from students what your thoughts are. I would encourage you to come to the policy committee meeting so we can, in a combined effort, put our energy together and get this done. Again, I emphasize it. I don't think it has to be overtly complicated. It can be a very simple guiding statement, a guiding principle. So,
I think Trustee DeMartini will talk about more because Connie cannot be here tonight, so she is going to take over for Connie, correct? Later this evening.
Tonight on the policies
Right.
and procedures. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we are now at 5.1.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I never planned this particular drill, but as it happened, it seems that midterm and final happened on 2 consecutive days. We had the campus fire drill, that was yesterday. And today, we truly evacuated the campus. At 4:45, the last bus took the last student and left the campus. And when I was the closed session with you, I was looking at my phone because we were exchanging texts to make sure how the entire campus was evacuated. I was not there. Trevor, who masterminded this drill, he was not there. So Melissa was there for the first part of the time, and then she started coming down here, and the deans who were there, they handled this entire activity. Our whole plan, this meeting was scheduled to be at Columbia, and we thought that we would be able to get Greg Elam, our campus safety officer, as well as some of the other folks who were there to share their experience with you as to how the drill went, because they were the first-hand people. And next time when we get up there, probably I'll be able to get some of their memories. I will tell them to preserve those and not forget about everything that they have done yesterday. I did do some walk around during the drill. And this drill has been maybe 6 months in the making, because it was easy to say that we'll have a drill, but we have to look at a date which works for the instructional times. It's not too much of an infringement into the instructional period. It has to be a little bit surprising element to it. We have to figure out the radio communication. We had some challenges regarding pulling a fire alarm for all the buildings at the same time, because we don't have any centralized alarm system where we can just press one button and that entire campus knows that something is happening. Yeah, that was quite a complex operation. I saw lots of these people with the radios on and, oh, is it the time? Yes, okay, go ahead, press the button. However, the drill happened, to my experience, whatever I have heard, quite smoothly. The students evacuated. I met around, met with some of the students, spoke with them, and they understood the purpose. Everybody cooperated. Classes were emptied. We did not time exactly how long does it take to empty out each of the buildings, but it was probably 5 minutes or so, which is a pretty decent time. Everybody knew the meeting points and so on and so forth. So I would say, in our experience, doing the first drill after I do not know how many years, it's a good beginning. But we also talked about this, and we'll have a debrief. We have another fire forum coming up next week when we talk about the awareness and safety of the campus. This is going to be a daily fabric of our campus life. I mean, this drill was more of a fire hazard. Probably next drill, we would like to do this every semester event. Next drill probably we'll do a shelter in place or a shooter on campus. We'll try to involve the law enforcement out there to see that how we can have a genuine mocked up scenario that what might happen. I sincerely pray that we do not have to do the real thing, but unless we practice, the difference between life and death is how much do we practice at that point of time. Those of you who were there in the campus during the drill, if you have anything to add, you want to say something on behalf of the students?
I was there in the middle of it. It seemed like the students were very cooperative. They seemed to know where to go, as Shantanu said, and there wasn't like a big hubbub or anything, or like there was anything like there was discomfort or something like that. So it seemed like it followed through and happened very well, and it was just it took like less than 20 minutes. It was perfect. It was really good. So yeah, 2 thumbs up. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, but big credit goes to Trevor, Greg, and Jake. Unfortunately, none of them are here. Trevor is in an ACCJC visit, but he really planned this well, right from the radios to the script to planning for the building marshals and so on and so forth. And our goal is to train more and more people as the building marshal, because some of the unique challenges that Columbia has, unlike most of the college campuses. In a regular college campus, every building has a department or division, which has the dean's office. The dean is present all the time. We have many buildings which are classrooms. Faculty members are there, but there is no one individual faculty member who is there during all the time. So who is going to act as the building marshal? That becomes a big challenge for us. Because building marshal has to be somebody who is generally occupying the building during the hours. So we're just navigating some of those gaps and seeing where it takes us. That's about it from me, unless there are some questions.
So question, so you hit the fire alarm.
Yep.
The alarm goes off in that location. Is it connected to the public safety office that indicates through light board or however you want to identify it that indicates to the public safety folks that we've got a fire alarm trip at a certain building on campus?
I don't know whether there is any electronic or electric or automatic signaling system. I'll check on that. Uh, Previously, wherever our alarm has gone on, something happens. Yeah.
You need to wait for the microphone, please.
So all fire alarms on both Columbia College and Modesto Junior College are routed into the campus safety office over here in the John Muir building. Those fire alarms are monitored 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. If an alarm does activate anywhere on the campus, that station immediately is notified. They will then notify the campus safety officers on campus. The officers will respond into the scene, and fire for the particular location will be dispatched to that particular alarm.
For both MJC and Columbia?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Another question, and this is something you and I discussed right before the meeting. This whole idea of a power shutdown, and you answered the question for me. We do not have a backup generator for our student housing up at Columbia. I understand the way that partnership works. It's leased out to a third party. And one may think, okay, it's their responsibility, but I think we have a larger responsibility to the students. So it may be something to look at from a grant opportunity standpoint. I don't know if there's any money available, but we may want to look at that.
Yes, and one possibility that we have at this point of time, there is Tuolumne County received a grant after a rim fire, and the county is some of the folks are talking to us, establishing a microgrid and a biomass power plant on campus. It's a $6 million project if it becomes reality, and that would be entirely funded by that county grant. It would be a location on the campus which would produce electricity on a microgrid. So in a situation like this, we would have our own power generation, and that can supplement what we have, the generator supply and so on and so forth. So yes, that's definitely something to keep in mind. That right now, we are in a little bit better situation because it's not awfully cold.
Right.
But if it's freezing cold, then it becomes a different challenge for the dorm
Right.
residents out there.
Right.
Well, I don't think it's totally our responsibility. I think it has to be some kind of a partnership where the responsibility is shared so that we can cover it properly and neither one of us get involved in a legal situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's one is the legal responsibility, that's one part, but other is a moral responsibility and the public eye, how it's held. So although they are people staying there, the dorms are not owned by the college, it's a different company and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, they are still Columbia College students. And this time also when the power outage was being discussed, we were discussing the possibility, should we open Manzanita building, which has a generator backup? We have enough fuel to run that building and generator for 3 days. So should we keep it up till 10 o'clock at night? What purpose would that serve? But then our HVAC in Manzanita would not run on the generator.
Right.
So on a warm day like this, the students are probably better off in their parking lots rather than coming into a building which is stuffy and no air. We decided against that. But in the winter time, we did open up the building and house them just because we just need to do the right thing.
Yeah, but we still have a contractual agreement with
Yes.
the people that are running the housing there. So, you know, I know what you're talking about, a moral obligation, but we still have to cover both areas, ours and theirs, if we do anything.
The lease, the way it.
But anyway, I don't want to get into a discussion on it, but I'm just saying.
Anyway, our lease is getting over in the next few years, so we are already looking at when we renew the lease, what are going to be the terms and conditions? What do we expect them to do? And how they would restore the building to a good condition for
I
us.
hope we have more luck with the contract than we've had in the past.
Sorry?
I hope we have more luck with that contract than we have in the past. We've had some difficult times with the contractors that took over the facility there. It's on our property, but
Right.
it's their facility per se. And for a certain
It's
period
our
of time,
buildings.
and then it's supposed to revert back to us. Anyway,
All right, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you shortly. Okay, so we are at 5.2 with Dr. Brian Sanders and Dr. Jennifer Zealot on the topic of connecting schedules to funding.
Handy dandy PowerPoint presentation, if everything works according to plan. Double clicking, supposed to open. Yeah, that's the one. Just don't see the mouse now. I could use my finger. It's frozen. As a quick aside, the Measure E investment that was made in the exit route, the emergency exit route, we also opened that yesterday. And a number of students drove out on the exit route up over the hill. It was a little bit gravelly and such. They weren't necessarily built for that with their vehicles, but it doesn't take a four-wheel drive to drive up there. So just a way to build familiarity, something you don't even know it's there, but you've sort of heard about it, but just driving down the road is an assistance. Okay, well, we, I think, are very grateful for the board meeting last week and the extension of options for us to continue to build our spring schedule out to the necessary size that we need it to be in order to generate the income for the district through FTS generation. So we wanted to kind of tie all of that together a little bit. So we're going to do a bit of the tag team thing and try to talk about how the schedule itself ties in with resource allocation and how we generate revenue through the district through schedule and some of the efficiencies that we're continuing to work on and really focusing on. Anything else, Adrienne? All right. So I wanted to start with just a quick definition to make sure that we're all on the same page. When we talk about productivity, we have to look at the two variables involved in that, which is a FTS and an FTEF. So we'll define those for you. You can look at a class, you can look at a department or a division across the college, you can look across the overall district. And you look at the FTES that's generated, and that's the full-time equivalent students that are involved. And the full-time equivalent faculty is the number of faculty, essentially, that we need to teach all of those classes together. When we divide those two numbers, you get this number that we call the productivity ratio. And it's a measure of efficiency. It's kind of a cost to revenue ratio in some sense. It's used across the California community college system, and there's this hovering out there, an essence that we ought to be around 17 and a half. That's an aspirational goal. That's the idealistic goal. And the interesting thing to me is that I've tried really hard to get what are other colleges' actual values, and they're not available on the state website. So Jennifer and I are both privileged to be part of the executive board for the California Community College's Chief Instructional Officers Executive Board. And we are working with that group to identify how might we get an ability to see some of this data in there. What kind of changes would we have to make in order to be able to upload that information so that all colleges upload it, therefore we can download and see how everybody is doing compared to this ephemeral 17.5. So how are we actually doing? Well, here's a chart that shows how we've done for the last several years. You can see at the beginning there, Modesto about 17.1 in fall of 2016. Now pay attention to the little yellow note there. Our state has been in a period of declining enrollment up and down California for the last several years due to the strong economy. And with that, if you have a collection of classes and fewer students sign up for them, and you keep the same collection of classes, then your denominator, the FTEF, stays the same, but the numerator, the students, is declining. So overall, the ratio declines. So what we're seeing is a declining ratio here is partly attributed to just a strong economy and declining enrollments across California. But as you can see, we've kind of been trickling down. Columbia College, about 13. Those are the numbers that keep me awake at night. If I say to myself, hey, we're supposed to be 17 and a half as a district and I'm at 13, that's a long distance that we have to start working on. Over to the right, you can see some projections for what we're going to be this fall. These are values that are not firm until the semester is concluded and we know the actual FTES and the actual FTF that are involved in those. But you can see that we're tailing back up again, getting ourselves smoothed out. There was clearly a dip in spring of 2018. I think that really surprised both of us. Decline just sort of dropped out of nowhere. So what's the relevance? Let's talk about some groundwork here. So I want to define the terms. An FTEF is a full-time equivalent faculty member, and that's what Alan, for instance, if he's teaching a full collection of classes, that's 100% load in the fall semester, and that's one FTEF for teaching about 5 classes of speech. Now you can also have that one FTF through several different adjunct faculty members teaching 5 separate classes, and those add up to one FTF as well. Now, each faculty member teaches one in the fall and one in the spring, so this is kind of weird that one faculty member gives us 2 FTEF. Sorry about that. So with Columbia College, we've got about 40 full-time instructors, so we're going to get about 80 full-time equivalent faculty as part of that ratio throughout the year when we count fall and spring.
So if I could just quickly interject, a way to keep it straight, just think by semester, don't think by the year, because by the semester, 1 FTES, 1 FTEF, and then it's all straight.
The piece here that I would look at is that anything that's not taught as part of the 80 full-time equivalent faculty members, the full-timers, has to be taught by somebody else. So who's that taught by? Well, it's either full-timers teaching overload, or it's adjunct faculty teaching classes on a part-time basis. So together we call that our PTOL, or part-time overload budget. So let's see, productivity number, what does it mean? Our target, 1,885 FTES for the year. Now, if we're at our current productivity number of 12, then a little math tells us that we need 157 FTEF overall, of whom 80 are full-timers, so there's gonna have to be 77 FTEF of PTOL. Lots of acronyms there. Does that make sense? 77 part-time equivalent of a full-time in faculty. Now we're talking about moving those targets though, moving those values. If I can move that value, we at Columbia College can move that to 14, then the ratio changes and it reduces to 135 overall, so only 55 are PTOL, which creates this difference of 22 overall and a savings of $583,000. So that last number is why I told you about all of the other numbers, right? We're trying to bring our productivity ratio upwards to improve the overall efficiency of each individual class so that each class generates a little bit more FTES, and so therefore our costs to generate a given amount of FTES is being reduced by $500,000. Now, Modesto's on 7 times the scale. If they make a comparable move, you're talking about 7 times that amount of savings, et cetera. So what do we do with that? Well, this is a motivational poster. I keep giving it to the deans every year with new dates at the top and telling them, look, here's what we're trying to do. We want our college to be at 14, but you have to think about this in balance. For the college to be at 14, our arts and sciences division that has the lecture classes, the large lectures, the sciences, those are a little more efficient or productive. They need to be about 15 to pull us up because we know that the CTE classes tend to be a little bit smaller and those kind of pull us down a little bit. But then even within each one of the divisions, arts and sciences has these pure lecture classes that are just like a large lecture down here. And they also have some classes that have lecture and lab. So there's some that have to be above and some that have to be below. There's always this little balance. CTE, there's gonna be some really small lab classes, but there's also gonna be some that are more efficient. So altogether, we have to start pulling those things up. So over time, we track those numbers and we look at it as, here's our trends. The red line is our target. We're clearly below target and we need to pull that up. And what we're trying to do is to pull the green line, the overall Columbia College line, up to be at 14. Now for that to happen, my arts and sciences division, arts, humanities and human performance has to be above, and then the CTE division will be a little bit below. But we'll be straddling that red line. Okay? Kind of the mechanics of it.
Question,
Yes,
just because I'll forget it if you don't. Why did you said the target is 14, but this is the 17.5? Explain that again.
So the 17.5 is highly aspirational, and it's also based on an 18-week semester, and we're on a condensed calendar, 16 weeks, and so that affects your ability to reach that aspirational goal.
So are you saying, excuse me, a compressed calendar is negative towards us reaching the efficiency of 17.5?
We have to work harder. It's not impossible. It's more difficult, and Some of the things we're going to talk about in a minute about the combinations of classes that you offer also impacts your ability to reach that aspirational goal. If we offer a significant proportion of CTE-oriented classes that are necessarily small in size, it's going to always continually pull the average down.
Okay.
And so that the balance of classes is really, really important also.
Santanu.
If I can address that a little bit, this number is not just a simple one number fits all kind of a thing. Every college, the kind of courses that we offer, the divisions that we have, everything counts towards the mix. If your proportion of students is higher towards CTE, which are typically smaller class size programs, then your total number tends to come down. If you have large arts and sciences, not sciences, large social sciences programs, then that number tends to go up. So within the same city, depending on the program offering, the numbers vary. There's a difference between rural campuses and urban campuses. Rural campuses would never achieve the efficiency of an urban campus just because of the program mix that we have. Because education is typically a pyramidal structure. Students start with a basic class, then they move on and on. Our upper level classes, we would not achieve the economy of scale in a rural campus. To give you an example, if I have 100 students starting in Accounting 101, 30 of them reach 4th semester. In that case, I fill a class. In a rural campus, if I begin with 50 students, there are only 15 students reaching semester 4, but they need to graduate. So we can either offer that class or we say you're not graduating. So we have to run that empty plane with empty seats, so to say. Other part that number of weeks, this number derives from what we say the magic number 525, weekly student contact hour, which we call WISH. Now when you have 17 weeks, weekly student contact hours and multipliers and all those things work out a little bit easier. When you compress that to 16 weeks, that number goes up even more. That 525 becomes 600. We don't want to get into all of that mumbo jumbo of calculation, but it's all I want to say is it's not a one size fits all. It's a kind of a simplistic approach to say that yes, if we can move the needle one notch higher from 13 to 14, that's $500,000. Easy to say, but if you look at in other terms, moving it from 13 to 14, that's a 7% improvement of efficiency. And in no industry, 7% of improvement of efficiency happens. I mean, that's a huge jump that we're talking about.
And just a quick example of the disparity between divisions on MJC's campus. Nursing, always packed full of students, always, but they will never achieve an efficiency rating higher of about 9.5. It's not a productive, efficient, in those terms, programs. But we will always have completers, and they'll always hit the metrics of gainful employment, exceeding a living wage, and all of those kinds of things. On the other hand, business, behavioral, and social sciences, I can always count on that division being at least 18 to 20. In a really good semester, they can be up 20, but we need that to make up for the 9.5 in nursing. So those are the ranges in divisions that we play with.
So I think your question too was, how is it if the target statewide is 17.5 that Columbia College could be at 14? So Dr. B has given you, some of those reasons, and partly also that's our first target. If we can get to 14, then we'll see if there's ways to inch it up above that over time as well. But still, we're still a long ways from 14. If I could achieve 14, we're gonna have a big party. Moving the needle is really hard. Moving the needles involves all these thousands of individual actions, some of which you can see on the screen about taking two small sections with 15 students and making a single class with 30. You can take a couple of science classes and stack those together, and Jennifer will show you an example of what that looks like later on. You can find in scheduling all these little nuances. The students have to take classes A and B, but they can't take them both at the same time because of the way we're scheduling them. So if we can find ways to repair those kinds of blocks in our schedule. One thing that happened with the negotiations this last time is we did see a slight increase in two areas of high demand at Columbia College. The first was in mathematics courses. We have enough students that those have now expanded to 40 students instead of 35. And in online classes, we now have 40 students, just like the faculty in Modesto have 40 students in online classes in most of the social sciences and typical just kind of lecture zones. It's important, though, to realize that not all actions move the needle in the upwards direction. So also with the negotiation package that we settled with, we changed the lab load ratio from 75% to 80%, which meant that the FTEF of each of our labs became a little bit bigger. So our denominator became bigger and our ratio became a little bit smaller. Now, that's a one-time action that just happened, and from here on out, we'll be able to adjust upward from there. Another one being some of our areas where we standardize lecture. It used to be that faculty needed to do 20 hours of lecture for a full load, and now it's 15. Well, in those cases also, the productivity ratio has been lowered as well. And then Jennifer mentioned this, and this was an interesting observation she made. The more we add programs through strong workforce that tend to be on the smaller end of the spectrum, the lower our statewide productivity numbers are going to be. So as we go to that CIO conference in this next week, that's going to be part of our discussion at the end of October. Pirates.
I feel like this is really drinking from a fire hydrant for all of you. And if you're not in this, if it's not your job, it can be really overwhelming. But sometimes when you have to make these decisions, you're painting with really broad strokes. And what we're trying to help you see are some of the nuances that complicate putting a schedule together. So if it were easy, it wouldn't take a crew of pirates, but I've got a crew of 9 deans, and Sarah's on the team now, and Florida's in the room, and we're all working together to put together the schedule at MJC. This fall, we have 1,700 sections, 1,700 sections, and all of those are evaluated and moved around. Some of them are canceled, some of them are rebuilt. So it takes a lot of strategy in order for us to really maximize how we put this together. So we've done a lot of training, and we're working really hard to get better at that. So here's some complicating factors in the schedule. All sections are not alike. I'm going to breeze through some of this because Brian addressed a little bit. He talked about the lecture lab combinations, and I'll give you an example where you can see what happens when we stack lectures and then have labs and what that turns into load-wise. Because I know one of the concerns has been the cost of the PTOL budget. We're going to see some of the implicating factors in that. Studio classes are different. Activities classes are different. Faculty assignments are not alike. I know we've also had questions about how we have 209 of a faculty obligation number at Modesto Junior College, but of that 209, only 183 are in the classroom doing a full-time instructional function. The rest of those faculty, they're providing critical functions for the campus. They're advising our students and counseling our students, which is a critical function. Articulation officer is a faculty member. We have to have someone who articulates our courses with our CSU and UC partners. And also our online education coordinator is a full-time faculty member. All of those people are faculty and contribute to that FON that we talk about, but they are not in the classroom actually teaching. And so those two numbers can get a little bit confusing. So it's really important for us to recognize that faculty is a broad classification. There are some other things that complicate that. We have in many of our programs, as part of our accreditation in different areas, particularly in nursing, every different accreditation requires that those different programs have a director, and that comes with reassigned time. Reassigned time means that faculty is not in the classroom teaching for that portion of their contract. So all of those things complicate putting a schedule together. Let's look at some actual examples. And this is an example of an anatomy instructor. The way we strive to reach some efficiencies with our sciences is by taking the lecture portion and stacking those 3 sections together. So it appears as 3 different sections out of that 1705 in the schedule, but 2 of them are called no pays. They're actually paid once, and it's a larger portion of load. You can see it's 20%, and then each lab is 32%. Okay, so under the new contract, in order to reach at least 100% of a contract, that faculty member has to have 16% in overload, because those numbers don't add up to a clean 100. If you remove a lab thinking, well, we'll just take a lab away, get a little closer to 100, you also actually have to remove the accompanying lecture, which takes that out of the large lecture chart, actually removes some efficiency, and also takes that faculty member way under their 100% load. So this is how we have to calculate for an anatomy, and many of it, this is typical of the sciences, this is how we have to calculate their load under the new contract. Here is an example in the CTE areas. So on the 20-hour a week, if you look at the column on the left, you would see that 2-unit lectures were 10% of the load, a 1-unit lab was 15% of the load. You could do 4 welding classes and have 100%. Under the new contract, a 2-unit lecture is 13.33%, a 1-unit lab is 16%. 4 of those necessarily brings the faculty member 17 and some change percent over 100. We can't it's the same kind of logic as with the anatomy teacher. If you take a lab, you take a lecture, and then the faculty member is way under load. Does that make sense? Yeah. So those are examples of, in practice, what the new CBA looks like when we're putting classes together for faculty. One exercise that the dean team and the VPs here at MJC went through, we called it our floor to ceiling exercise. Sometimes you need to know what is your base capacity. With the faculty, the full-time faculty that we have at MJC, what is our maximum earning capacity, if you will? If you look, you can see that for us, it's 185 regular FTEF. Our maximum possible FTES generation is 2,954. Regularly, our targets are close to around 6,000 per semester. So we can get close to half of what our earning target is expected with our full-time load fulfilled. When you look at the caveats, you can see the impacting factors. Some of them we've talked about. A couple that we didn't were necessary reassigned time that is also contractual. Right now, most of the YFA leadership comes out of MJC, and so MJC's reassigned time is impacted more significantly than at Columbia. But each of the colleges have reassigned time for other governance issues, and also bank leaves and sabbaticals, which the board is aware of. At the end of the day, MJC needs 28 FTEF in addition to the bodies that are there in PTOL to make sure that we meet 100% of a contract for the full-time faculty that are employed at MJC. So if you want to see the gap in our annual target, you can see our spring 2020 target is right around 59. The full-time faculty can generate 2954. That leaves us with a need to earn out of PTOL 2946 FTES. That, if you use the math that Brian showed earlier, that means we need 184 full-time equivalent faculty. So I'm going to skip this one. We've talked about that. And I see the glaze. This is a lot of numbers, but I'm really trying to hit the highlights to help you understand what we're doing. So here's some mitigating strategies we've employed at MJC. All of the deans have been trained at an enrollment management seminar at Claremont University, and it's taken us a couple of summers to get there, but it's a really deep immersion as a team where you take your schedule and you go and you learn a methodology for really attaching your targets, your FTES targets, with the full-time equivalent faculty and the budget numbers that you have to work with. And so we're getting much more precise in how we approach these things. It's easier for deans to think in terms of how many people do I have to work with. And so we're starting to work a methodology where we assign full-time equivalent faculty to a division and say you have this many people to work with, but you need to hit this FTES target. Go do your magic. We're also, in that way, we're able to tie FTEF and FTES much more closely to resource allocation. Some of the other strategies that are helping us, all the redesigned that we've done through Guided Pathways is telling us with much more precision the kinds of courses that we need to offer and when we need to offer them. We also are utilizing data from Ad Astra. They have predictive analytics that have been helping us know which kinds of classes are needed on which campus, even at which time, by looking at historical trends of when students have wanted classes. Also, we're using, our Student Services Office has done a great job of enacting Starfish and bringing that on board, and there's a lot of helpful data there for us as well. Not only, this is how helpful the Starfish data is. If we know we have opportunity to add another section, we can go into Starfish and query it. It can tell us this many students need this class, and by looking at the kinds of students and what's in their ed plan, it can tell you the optimum time and place, whether East or West Campus. So it helps us guarantee that if we add classes, they will fill. And it also gives us, our success specialists and our counselors, a lot of information about who to actually go inform about the class. So, that was the wrong button. As a district, and with all of us working together, we have opportunity really to think holistically about how we can maximize our access for our students, because we've been talking in terms of dollars and cents and FTES and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, what that means for students is access and opportunity. And so now, particularly with the new Student Center funding formula being focused on district numbers, they don't care about MJC, they don't care about Columbia, they care about YCCD. And so we have opportunity to strategize holistically and think about what should our portfolio of programs as a district look like. And we've all got, maybe most of us have investment portfolios. If you think about that pie, you've got a good portion in the high return, right? You want to know you're always gonna have this coming in from this area. You can afford a certain amount of your portfolio in a riskier stock, maybe. I liken those, no offense to any CTE people in the audience, but those are our riskier stocks because they're small, the yield may or may not be so great, but we have them so that students have access to that educational opportunity. It's an identity question that if we have at the district level, the two colleges can also then have on our own campuses, and then we know priorities, we know how to direct the dollars that are allocated to each campus toward which kinds of programs, and we can keep it balanced within that allocation to ensure that even if it's a time where we have to cut back, we can ensure strategically that we're still aiming for those productivity measures that make sure that we both get the bang out of our buck, but students get the most access possible. That's it.
Questions?
So I'm gonna, in my prior life over many years, I'd have to take notes from 20 different people and condense it down into a 3-page document. So I'm gonna condense this. It's very difficult to put a schedule together. We've got all these initiatives coming down from the state, Guided Pathways, AB 705. We don't know yet what the effect's going to be on all that and how that's going to affect us locally. Given all of that, we need, you're basically telling us, look, we need you to pay attention to these numbers because more than likely we're going to need that additional $600,000 to meet our target. And you as trustees need to understand that it's very difficult to meet these targets given our certain conditions right now. And that's the message. Because I can tell you in our meeting, we understand our number one priority is our students.
Absolutely.
We understand that, as Santanu pointed out, each district, each college is unique. It depends on what our students need at any given time. There's the core programs that you just sort of replicate every semester. We get that. And we're not going to cut, from my perspective, as I said then, we're not going to cut off our nose to spite our face. We're going to focus what we have on our students. Yes, it helps to meet our targets, but for me, it's meeting the needs of our students.
Absolutely.
We've bought ourselves some time with the additional infusion of $3 million. So the college, so MJC can put together its schedule. We understand we're still short based on everything you just laid out. our vice chancellor of fiscal is going to, try and find that additional money. From my perspective, if there isn't, I guarantee you, you guys are gonna be back here probably in a month. We're gonna have a special board meeting like we just had, and you're gonna say, I need that, we collectively need that additional $600,000 to meet our target. And from my perspective, I'm going to say yes, because it's going to make sense, but we're going to allow our finance team and the colleges to come up with unique ways to see if they can, find efficiency, find that money somewhere else and invest it. So that's what I took from this.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. Yes, Santanu.
It's a, thank you for the support for our students, because definitely that's what we're looking at. One part that we did not bring out here that much is uh, previously our life was little simpler when everything was driven by FTES, that we have FTES. So we know that if there is a 45-seater class versus a 30-seater class, 45-seater class is more efficient because it gives more money. But now a 45-seater class producing a 15% graduation versus a 30-seater class producing a 75% graduation. Because for every graduate you're getting, you're supposed to get more money, which state is not giving us. So that becomes more complex. And then if you have more students in a class which is coming from a economically disadvantaged area, then that class is breaking even easily than a student which is coming from economically affluent area, a parameter on which we have zero control on. And that has made this calculation, and I've been doing this calculation for quite some time. We all talk about this. It's extremely complex. But at the same time, once we turn back the students, it's exceptionally difficult to get the students' confidence back and win them back. So I appreciate the support of the board that we can just maintain the schedule and support our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are at 5.3, the association reports, starting with the Student Senate activity reports. Do we have Michaela or Francisca? Greetings.
Good evening. So ASMJC executives had a meeting with Academic Senate a couple Thursdays ago, in which Chad Redwing and Rob Stevenson attended, and we had an open conversation with them about student concerns and some feedback. This is the first time that Academic Senate has reached out to the student body since I've been a part of ASMJC, and I'm going on my third term. So on the behalf of the executive team, we'd like to thank Chad and Rob for dedicating some of their time to us and actually listening and just taking it in. So going into our activities, we started this month with Breast Cancer Awareness Day, which we had a very successful event educating some students on just awareness of breast cancer. We handed out shirts at this event and pins. This week we had Hispanic Heritage Week. We started with the taste of Hispanic culture. Day 2 was Taco Taquiza. Day 3 was a sweet taste of culture, along with Flow. And we handed out t-shirts today as well. And tomorrow we have our last day, which is art and culture. Each day we had a variety of food samples for the students, along with live music to just embrace the culture. This week will lead into our 36th annual Hispanic Education Conference, in which ASMJC co-sponsors, and we also will be volunteering at 5:30 a.m. until 3 on Saturday the 12th. This is an open event to the community and will be from 8:30 until 2 on East Campus. Next week, we will have our homecoming week, where we're embracing school spirit. This week will lead into our football homecoming game on Saturday the 19th, where ASMJC will also be volunteering at. We will be leaving to the California Community College Student Affairs Association Conference on October 25th until the 27th. We will end our month with our Dia de los Muertos week and trick or treat event. And then also in regards to the conversation we had in our last board meeting about credit loaners, we brought it to the Senate on October 4th, and ultimately we discussed the pros and the cons of having a credit loaner. And basically, what we ultimately decided is that we need more financial literacy education before we start looking into credit loaners on campus. Any questions?
I have two. One of the board policies, I don't know if you reviewed the agenda, is we talked about it last month about whether the board should approve credit cards for students, and we last month agreed on a first reading that we would, providing that we provide some financial literacy. So does the Senate or you have an opinion that the board should go ahead and approve some credit card solicitation along with that financial literacy, or not?
That would be something I'd take back to the Senate and have a conversation about.
Well, we're voting tonight.
But from the conversation that we had, the financial literacy education is really important to have on campus.
What kind of session are you thinking? I mean, are you thinking of like one session? Or are you thinking of a class?
I'm thinking more of like a class as a general education is what we discussed and what I brought to them as an idea of having, just so it could be more open to students if they feel like they need to take a financial literacy class, kind of having it an open option.
Okay, and I have one more question. How often does the Student Senate meet?
We meet every first and third Friday of every month.
So twice a month.
Correct. The first Friday is on East Campus. The second Friday, or the third Friday, would be on West Campus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing that back to us.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, so we now are up to Francisca.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. The Associated Students of Columbia College have had a very busy last few weeks. On September 30th, the culmination of two of our STEM professors, Erin Nagley and Lisa Murphy's sabbatical year, came to a head in a presentation to the school on the country of Madagascar and their work there. The presentation by their new colleague, Gerard Bakarazafi, was fun and interesting, and there were 105 people there, which does not seem like a lot for MJC, but it was a lot for Columbia. Bakarazafi was enthusiastic, and the college and surrounding high schools will continue to stay in contact with him and continue to follow his cause of preserving the national parks of Madagascar. As Dr. Bandopada reported, we had a fire drill on the 8th of October this past Tuesday, and the students seemed to respond well to it. As Dr. Sanders also stated, the fire road was opened, which I feel was the only hitch that I could really think of. Many students did not know that it was even a possible exit or where it was, even though we did tell them about it. Following the fire drill, Dr. B has set up 2 student safety forums on October 16th and 17th in order to ensure that any student who would like to attend is able to do so. He will be answering any questions that the student may have about campus safety, having to do with evacuations, fire, and a potential officer on campus. The ASCC is preparing for our yearly leadership conference as well, the California Community College Student Affairs Association, CSAW, in Sacramento. This is a valuable experience for senators, new and returning, as it gives us tools to better represent all the students that we serve. We are also preparing for our Mid-Semester Madness event on October 23rd, an evening in the middle of the semester where students can study for their midterms with their professors and tutors. Food, drink, and raffles will be provided. We will also be putting out a survey to the students with a raffle ticket as an incentive, asking them pertinent questions, which we will then hopefully be able to work on and then address again in another survey at cram night at the end of the semester, having possibly, hopefully, improved on the issues raised. I'd also like to add, in Savannah's absence, that we have been working with her in regards to the possibility of changing the calendar. Columbia College students are not in favor of this, as it would have too many adverse effects for us. And Dr. B has heard our opinion on this. Due to the special circumstances of our mountain campus. I gave a written statement with these opinions to the committee that Columbia held, the calendar committee, in order to make sure that the students were taken into account at that meeting. But I'm confident that our opinion will be represented in the discussion of these important decisions. Any questions?
I'd just like to ask you one of the same questions. Does your Senate also meet twice a month?
No, we meet 4 times a month for 1 hour on Tuesdays.
4 times?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the Academic Senate reports. Lou.
Good evening. I would like to begin by just letting everyone know that I heard from my colleague at Columbia College, and Pam Guerra-Schmidt will be unable to attend this evening. She's ill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The MJC Academic Senate passed first readings of several resolutions at our October 3rd meeting, including Resolution F19A, teaching the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students. This was proposed by Senators Teresa Rojas, Aisha Saleh, Noah Wilson, and Andrew Kransman. The resolution reminds us that incarcerated individuals who participate in correctional educational programs and related services are 43% less likely to return to jail and 58% more likely to find post-release employment than those who do not participate in such programs. The resolution also points out that the state of California's new funding formula encourages the development of educational programs and services for incarcerated students by allowing incarcerating FTES counts to be included in a college's base fund calculations. For these and other reasons, the resolution passed a first read unanimously and is set for a second read at our next meeting. Danica Bravo, Project Rebound Coordinator at CSU Stanislaus, Glenn Stovall, Project Rebound Coordinator at MJC, and Dean Ashley Griffith have played a crucial role in informing the Senate's position on this important issue, as the three of them invited faculty to a campus-wide workshop the first week of October and then attended our Senate meeting to present on educational programming and services for the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. The Academic Senate thanks them for these efforts and their time. As shared at the last board meeting, the MJC Academic Senate is also forming a steering committee to help plan for a May 2020 faculty retreat that will focus on innovations and best practices in teaching, including learning across disciplinary bounds and encouraging community project and discussion-based learning. In a similar vein, tomorrow, the second of 4 mealtime faculty workshops will be held at MJC to model discussion and inquiry-based education and features the sharing of best practices related to using primary sources. We will engage and discuss readings that include Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, Einstein's essay on science and religion, and Virginia Woolf's The Love of Reading. As always, trustees are welcome to attend and, of course, stay for lunch. One of our overarching goals of these professional development opportunities is to create a curriculum and a culture of innovation at the college, and to help students develop the essential social and critical thinking skills that employers in our region seek but do not often find in our labor force. One example of a company which places great importance on the kind of skills that project and discussion-based learning teach is Enterprise Rent-A-Car, one of the biggest employers of college students in the entire country. Enterprise, for one, doesn't pay too much attention to where prospective students went to college, what they studied, or even what their grades were. The company does care, however, about what are called soft or essential skills. According to Marie Antum, Enterprise's vice president, what matters are critical thinking skills, communication, and problem-solving abilities. In this way, she says, college graduates demonstrate cognitive ability, the ability to learn and to take more responsibility and to lead and manage others. Teaching the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated and encouraging faculty professional development that includes a healthy balance of project and discussion-based learning are just two of the initiatives at MJC's Academic Senate this semester. At the next meeting, I will share more about our senator's recent move towards forming a task force to explore alternative models for the current academic calendar. Until then, thank you for the opportunity to share with you a bit about our work, and good evening.
Thank you. You have a
I
question?
have a
Ann?
question. For the incarcerated students that you passed the resolution, where, are you talking the county jail? Where would you
Sure. So we actually,
teaching?
so with Danica, Glenn, and Ashley, we actually visited one of the detention facilities in the county off of Crow's Landing. And the complexity about that facility is they have incarcerated individuals who are there for a short amount of time, but others who are there for like 3 months, 6 months. So we're looking at that as an opportunity to pilot programs for compressed calendar and offer 8-week classes at the incarcerated facility to see how successful they are, precisely because they're not there for very long.
Okay, but at the county jail,
That's right, yes. And they also have maximum security facilities that we would teach probably longer sections in as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so LTAC, Jillian.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have a few photos. And then does it just go up? Okay. So,
Different.
well, I don't need it quite yet, so let me just give a couple. They don't want to talk to one another. You go here and I'll talk about it first. All right, so the leadership team advisory council, that just seems very loud tonight. Is that really loud?
It has been louder tonight,
Okay.
but you're not too loud.
Okay. So we met as we normally do this Monday. We're very close to going out for an approval vote for the editing on the new handbook. We are having an emergency meeting this Friday just to discuss a slight change. But hopefully we'll go out for a vote next week. The leadership team mentoring program work group met, and we're going to be soon emailing out the framework of the program to all the membership. Once the mentors are paired up with each other, we are planning a holiday kickoff for the mentoring program with follow-up events in spring and summer. And then our treasurer, Judy Lancaster, will be contacting the team soon with a reminder to pay dues. Everyone in the room. Our dues go towards paying the 2 annual student scholarships, one for each college, and also the retirement plaques at the end of the year at the retirement gala. But we're hoping to get 100% of the members paying their dues because we would like to increase the number of scholarships to students. And we can do that if we can get 100% everybody. It's only $30, people. So, and then as a community college district, we take our connection to the communities that we serve very seriously. And therefore, many of our leadership team members work in the community. They volunteered to enrich the lives of those we serve. So tonight, I just wanted to focus on 2 members and what they do and their volunteerism. And I was hoping to get some photos up. No? Okay. So the first person is John Macedo, and he's the MJC Ag Operations Manager, and there's a lovely photo of him on a lake with a big fish. And he volunteers, he's part of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce Ag Aware Committee, the Harvest Luncheon Committee. He's on the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. He's a member of Kiwanis of Greater Turlock. And he's on the Turlock Chamber of Commerce, and yet he finds time to fish. So, and then the second person is Jerry Vargas, who is the Executive Secretary of Florida, and I have a lovely photograph of her sitting next to Linda Flores, actually. They were at a Central Valley Opportunity Center meeting, and so she sits on the board, Jerry sits on the board of directors for the Women's Haven of Stanislaus County, the Central Valley Opportunity Center, Mujeres Latinas de Stanislaus, and she's a member of the Latina Leadership Network for 15 years, and she served as president statewide for that. And most of those organizations focus on student scholarships. The CVOC focuses on training programs to help field workers transition to regular workforce. So, and then my last item.
There it is.
Oh, okay, that's John. So you'll know when you see him. And then this is not going down. Okay, there's Jerry and the sitting next to Linda in the black. And then because we were going to be at Columbia College, I thought that I would highlight a member of LTAC. And so tonight I am highlighting a Columbia College Student Services leadership team member, Annika Rogers-Whitmar. I said, send a photo so they can recognize you. And this is the photo she sent. But then she sent a second one. So there's Annika and her husband, Seth. So Annika has a bachelor's degree in psychology. Oh, she's the director of TRIO program at Columbia College. She has a BA in psychology from Sonoma State and a master's in instructional communication from Sac State. And combined, they give her a unique experience of understanding and working both in student services and instruction. And she also attended Columbia College as a student and had 3 student worker jobs there. So she knows the community college student and all the challenges that they face. 8 years ago, she came to YCCD and began creating the Columbia College TRIO programs from scratch, assisting with Welcome Week events, starting the rural EOC grant with no prior models in the state, and creating long-lasting collaborations with special programs, student services, and TRIO at MJC. And these are all achievements that Annika is very proud of. As you may have guessed from the snow photos, she is a local Tuolumne County kid who came home to land her dream job. She has a 23-year-old son working for the local utilities district. I wonder what he's doing today. A supportive husband of 22 years, Seth. She enjoys gardening and making home herbal tincture remedies to spread wellness and connection to nature. And finally, Annika wanted to say that her job family is as important as her real family. Her students are her friends, and many now work alongside her, and she's so happy to see them live their dreams. And so that's Annika Rogers-Whitmar.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right, so now.
Thank you for getting the computer working finally. Whenever I hear that computers are going to take over the world and then stuff like that happens, I kind of doubt it. Okay, so we're up to YFA.
I didn't today, not today. You know, if you drink coffee after 2 p.m. and you get a little older, you could be up till 3 a.m. Not a good choice anymore, right? Well, good evening. It's so good to see all of you. Yes, can you believe it's already been a month?
No.
Time's going by very, very quickly. First of all, YFA would like to express our condolences to the Viss family and express our thanks to their family for allowing Don to serve the community for all the years that he did serve in various roles. And we would also like to acknowledge Marty Brewer, who is a classified staff professional getting ready to retire. 40 years, that's two 40-year retirements in the last 2 months. And that's a big deal, and we definitely recognize that kind of dedicated service, and we appreciate her so much. Onto my updates. YFA has received the district reopener, and we would like to thank the chancellor and the team and the board for providing us a descriptive reopener, not just articles, and that's really good. It just helps to promote transparency all the way around, so we were happy to see that. And our primary focus will be the new compensation model. That'll be our primary focus in this session, and our first session is set for October 25th. So we're looking forward to that, and we're already getting some behind-the-scenes work done. So thanks, Dr. B, for helping us out with that. YFA attended the board finance committee meeting as well as the board policy meeting and the board special meeting last week. And we would like to thank you for the augmentation to MJC's budget of $3 million to help fund the spring schedule. That will fund MJC's spring schedule to 80%. And we also thank you for your commitment around the remaining 600,000. Yeah. Thank you, Darren. But we are very, very thankful because we understand that you understand what's going on around scheduling. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate Dr. Hoopis for bringing the matter forward and working with the district to facilitate solving the ongoing PTOL funding shortage at MJC. So we appreciate that very much. And as Jennifer and Brian explained in their presentation tonight, PTOL is a big part of our budget that funds, you know, all of our adjunct work as well as our full-time faculty overload work. And oftentimes there's situations where full-time faculty are called on and step in to help fill, just at MJC, those 1,700 sections in the spring. So it was great to see the presentation tonight that helps the board understand the complexities around class scheduling. It's quite a chore. So thanks to Jennifer and Brian for presenting to you folks tonight. Also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the hiring freeze. So YFA recognizes and values the board's commitment to the fiscal health of the district, and that's evidenced by the funding of the spring schedule as well as the call for a hiring freeze. And we would like to request some clarification be provided to the employees of the district about the implementation details of the hiring freeze. We recognize that the decision was just made last week, but we would very much like to see implementation details of that. The colleges plan in advance for filling full-time faculty positions, but that's not often the case around adjunct positions. Just by its nature, hiring can be unpredictable around adjunct positions and based on changing needs and circumstances. So we'd like to see some clarification there. Faculty have also expressed some concern on how the hiring freeze might affect full-time replacements and growth positions. It would greatly help us to dispel rumors and things that are being talked about if we could just get a little bit more information on the implementation to dispel rumors that can start to circulate at the colleges. Well, I think there's a lot of unknowns. We haven't heard much except that there's a hiring freeze in effect as of October 2nd, and that the board would be reviewing positions based on an as-needed basis. And we would just like to hear a little bit more about what that means in specifics, which I'm sure Chancellor Young.
Well, I'll put myself in the hot seat on this one since I was the one that formulated this idea. My intent was to, A, recognize that, you know, we're going through a problem right now, and it's not by our own doing. It's by the state not fully funding what they said they were going to fund. You meet these targets, et cetera, you'll get X. And now they're not giving us X. So we're trying to scramble around. So A, recognize that we have a problem. It's not an emergency at this point. It's a problem that we all need to collectively work on. But at the same time, not cut off our nose to spite our face, as I keep saying. And I will repeat that over and over again. The board needs to support the work that the two college presidents are doing in conjunction with the chancellor and his cabinet on being very strategic in how we use the funds that we have, and recognize our number one priority is our students. So to your point, there's no intention, and you can, you know, I'll show up at your next meeting and say it from the top of a chair if I have to. There's no intention on picking and choosing one discipline over another discipline. Those decisions are going to be made, 99.9% is all going to be made with the college presidents, their staff, in conjunction with the chancellor. And if it's, in my opinion, if it's an existing, and I think the board shares, if it's an existing position, you're going to fill that. If there's a retirement or something happens, you're going to fill it. With respect to adjuncts, we just approved the $3 million. So it would be silly on our part to start picking and choosing what adjuncts you're going to hire to what degree. We're going to leave those decisions to the presidents to make, and the chancellor will then bring it to the board for approval. We want to make sure that we're not taking on unnecessary short-term and long-term liabilities that impact our primary goal of servicing our students. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And if it would be helpful if we could get that communication out district-wide. That would be, and we'll pass the message along to, I'll pass the message along to faculty, but it would be helpful if there was a larger communication that went out so everybody can hear the same message at the same time.
Can I add one thing where I slightly disagree with Darren? The decision to fill a retirement is not the board's doing. That needs to be done by whatever process you have, because we don't always fill a vacancy, but what comes to us has to go through the constituent groups, through the president, and come to us. If it comes to us, then, you know, we're very likely to support it. I just want to make that.
Well, it's going to show up on the personnel action for board approval. I mean, as routine and customary business. You know, I'm just saying we're not going to interfere with that normal process. Like I said, our focus is, let's not add any additional short-term and long-term liabilities that are not prudent at this time.
Okay, thank you. On that note, I have one more thing I'd like to talk about efficiencies. So YFA would like to note that the board tonight is going to be asked to approve a $71,500 purchase order to pay Cambridge West Partnership for consulting services to assist us in creating a new resource allocation model. When I say us, I mean YCCD. Since we're looking at spending efficiencies across the district, I'm hopeful that we could save a portion of these consulting fees. We have a well-rounded and highly intelligent group of constituents on the district's fiscal advisory committee, the DFAC committee. And under Susan's leadership, we should be able to work together.
We are going to bring that up, but we can bring it up now. Let's do it now. So if you would explain, Susan, because we have asked also.
The consultant is not funded by general fund. It is funded by a grant from the state through the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative. The grant was we got the grant specifically for this purpose. So it is on a time and materials basis, but even failing that, it would have to be spent on items surrounding the DFAC, surrounding the RAM, surrounding other specific details according to that.
Well, that's good news.
Yes.
then we can spend every penny and she can explain to us all those models that just got posted to the website that we're trying to make our way through. Fantastic. That's great. Okay, well, good. We can check that box. We would also like to express some thanks to the HR department, specifically to Catherine Pritchard, the HR director. With her help, we've been able to get regularly scheduled EER meetings, which we haven't had regularly over the last several years. And we are beginning to reestablish open and regular communications with HR, and we're working on finding simple solutions together, and that's a nice change. We appreciate that. And also, I would like to thank Jillian for introducing us to Annika and allowing us to get to know her better. I love that we are seeing each other more in our human state these days, which is very, very nice. And for my closing comments, I just would like to say it's been an awesome week at MJC as we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. It's been fun to be out on the quad. There are flags flying. There's music, there's food. Students are out enjoying their lunches on the quad. And it's just been a great week to feel the vibrancy of the campus. It's been a fun week at MJC. And as I said last month, college should be fun. Or last month. Any questions for me?
Shelley, I would just like to add, I want to thank you for continuing the tradition, at least while I've been on the board, of being accessible, heading off issues before they become a problem, like you did here tonight, and reaching out and asking those questions and asking me to meet with you. I do appreciate that, so I want to thank you for that.
Thanks, Darren. We appreciate you being available too. Thanks.
I have one comment, it's not a question. I just wanted to inform you, the board, and everyone in the audience that October is also Italian Heritage Month.
Yay. Yay. Meatballs, right? Yes. Yay.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
That's why we had lasagna.
Thank you very much. All right, CSEA. Tiffany, welcome.
Good evening.
Same color scheme. Well,
I like it. Yeah.
me too.
Well, good evening, members of the board. I don't have a whole lot to report on tonight, but CSEA would also like to recognize Marty Brewer. YFA stole my thunder, but Marty Brewer served 40 years. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to call the help desk, if you had issues with your email or logging in. She is the epitome. She's a great example of customer service to our staff and to our students, so we will miss her and her role here. Just a few quick updates for CSEA. Negotiations is never ending, and we are preparing our sunshine letter to the district as well, so that will be on the November board agenda. We are also planning has begun for our one-day classified staff retreat, which was negotiated into our contract this last time. So thank you, board and the district, for supporting that for classified staff. Previously, we had a great classified staff retreat, which was a 2-day overnight event that 20 to 30 staff were selected, and they would go away and then, have some time. But we're looking at doing a 1-day retreat to hopefully get as many classified staff involved as possible, so that that planning has begun. And it is my hope and the desire of the committee that we use the 1-day retreat to foster relationships and enhance a deeper sense of unity amongst classified staff, as well as share some best practices and provide professional development opportunities. We also have a few social events that are coming up in an effort to build college spirit and pride, encourage community, and boost morale amongst classified staff. CSEA has arranged for, we're promoting the MJC homecoming game, as well as the MJC versus Columbia basketball game. So thank you to the athletic department for welcoming us and partnering with us there. I did also want to address the budget and the hiring freeze. Since the decision to enact the district-wide hiring freeze, I've received numerous questions in the forms of emails and phone calls, people stopping by my desk. If they have my cell phone number, they've reached out to me on that too. Mostly just that they're concerned. And so the comment that I hear the most, just to inform the board, is that we know what's next, layoffs, and that's coming from the classified staff. So I postponed our CSEA leadership executive team meeting last week to this week in light of the special board meetings, and also held a special meeting with the leadership team. So I do want the board to know that CSEA remains committed to supporting the position of the board, as well as trying to educate the classified staff and try to minimize some chaos and panic that might be ensuing in their minds.
We appreciate that.
So I want to thank Trustee Garrett for the statement that there are no sacred cows. That message is getting out to the campus, and it's comforting and probably a little scary at the same time, but you know.
It's scary to us too.
But that's the reality of what we're facing, right? So, like I said, we remain committed to supporting and educating our members about the budget situation. We are committed to supporting the college presidents and the chancellor and the board in communicating that positive message. We're in the process of trying to schedule some meetings and invite Susan Yeager and hopefully the VPs, and have some satellite meetings at each of the campuses if schedules allow, to provide, because education, if classified staff are educated or at least have an opportunity to hear what's going on and ask questions and feel like they are offered that, then I think knowing some of that information might minimize some of that panic, and just let them know that it is uncertain, but we have a plan and we're moving forward in the best way that we possibly can. In addition to that, I just wanted to let you guys know that October and November for CSEA, we have nominations for all of our leadership or e-board positions. So every year those positions get re-elected, or people get re-nominated or nominated for the first time. And we will hold elections in December for the new leadership team. So, but that's it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
So are you running again, or someone got to nominate you, or are you going to just say, well, this little brief period of time has scared me to death and that's it?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I got invited very persistently to participate in CSEA leadership in the second VP role. And it was communicated to me that there wasn't a lot of responsibility. And it was a way for me to dip my toes, you know, check it out, test the waters in the pool. I asked a lot of questions at the meetings to gain an understanding of why union leadership did things a certain way. And then a few months later, our president was moved to management, and a CSEA representative that works for CSEA came to one of our meetings and told me that it was my obligation. This is what I signed up for, and I needed to slide into the presidency seat. So my work ethic and knowing that I had committed myself to the union, I slid in there, and I'm hoping I'm doing a good job for now. But it is a lot of work in addition to my other job responsibilities. And so I hope that, I mean, we've seen a lot of people get involved and that have never been involved before, which is really, really great. And we have high-level classified professionals on campus that they work hard, they're dedicated to the students, they're dedicated to the mission of the colleges, and just really elevating that level of customer service and helping students get through and reach their goals. And so I hope that that will be infused. And if I get nominated, I will consider. I have 3 children and a husband and a job, but I am enjoying my time serving the union. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? No? All right. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, and we're up to our faculty representative to the board, Alan McKissick.
Thank you for this opportunity to address you. I would like to say that Marty Brewer has talked me down from peaks of frustration about technical matters many times. I'm just learning right now of her retirement, and it's amazing, her service. And I hope you don't mind, but I would like to add a few words to those already spoken about Don Viss. One of the highlights of serving in my position was a lengthy breakfast meeting with Trustee Viss. In the discussion of current issues in governance, it led naturally to Don Grouning's grounding his views in his considerable experience as a trustee. But as we spoke, he talked about his previous career, or careers, I should say, in public service. I was quickly fascinated by not only his personal history, but his grasp of the history of public education in this region and of the people who live here. He answered every question. I wish it was recorded. I will just reflect that my lasting impression of Don Viss is that his was a life of service. He was a highly principled individual, and he was a consummate gentleman. I attended the board policy committee meeting where I was able to convey the views of faculty organizations on several policies and procedures that will come before the board. A couple times committee members asked me the equivalent of, and what were they thinking about sentiments that were forwarded on policy matters, and I think I was able to answer it. On due process, I will not try to add anything to the remarks made by board members tonight, but I thank you again for your tenacity. I also want to recognize the efforts of MJC President Jim Hoopas. As our chancellor and most board members know, there has been a controversy over an academic calendar proposed for next academic year. I will skip the details, but I wish to thank President Hoopas for his engagement with constituencies in depth and in person. He discussed calendar issues directly with MJC academic senators in a regular meeting and with senators, I understand, in the ASMJC Senate. I was present for an in-depth discussion with the MJC Academic Senate Executive Committee. I have been in MJC through numerous presidents who represented an amazing range of styles, but I've never seen a president so committed to direct engagement with the people he leads. I don't think I'm speaking too soon to say that a general consensus is at hand on what to recommend for the board's consideration. That recommendation will include formation of a task force representing all constituencies to formulate an evidence-based recommendation on an academic calendar that will best promote student success. To borrow a phrase from a previous speaker, we need the best bang for the buck and a maximum of student access. Thank you again for this opportunity to address you.
I'd just like to make a few comments that I'm second to Abe in length on the board, and our other trustees have 3 or fewer years experience, 5 of them. And there have been a lot of come and go of the faculty liaison to the board. And many years ago, there was not a policy and procedure committee, but the amount of assistance, just the institutional memory, the suggestions, well, this is what the faculty was thinking, just as he said. I just want to commend Alan for the wonderful contribution that he has made in assisting the board, in representing us and sharing the faculty point of view on things. And for my 17 years on the board, you've been the best faculty liaison. I just wanted to say that publicly, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are back to Dr. B, I think. We are.
Right. Good evening again. All semester I talked about the drill, so I'm not going to repeat that anymore. Now, we have started offering classes at Amador County, as you know, through the video transmit. That happened this semester, and a couple of weeks back, we went out and talked to officials in Calaveras County, the part of Calaveras that's within our area, if we can offer a similar video transmit class out there. Our friend from this district, Al Alt, as you all know, is now in Calaveras County. So Al has been very enthusiastic in fostering a partnership with us so we can offer those courses. Discussions were great. We are probably going to offer a course once we figure out some of the modalities or operational issues on their Department of Education room. So they have an office building. It doesn't cost us anything out there because the infrastructure is there. We're just trying to figure out who would open the room, close the room, student safety, those kind of things. Then we can start offering those classes. Most likely we would see that next semester, latest maybe next fall, but that's our expansion area. Earlier last week, we received information that our request for a visit by the partnership resource team that has been granted, which comes with, once they complete the visit, a $200,000 grant. And we have sought this grant specifically to enhance our activity in the video transmit courses. So it's it's good news for us. $200,000 is not a huge sum of money, but still it would ramp up our activities in expanding the video transmit courses along our 49 corridor that we have been looking at. We had the first EMP, FMP, Educational Master Plan, Facilities Master Plan meeting. That was last week. Dr. Sanders led that meeting. We have not had a planning meeting of this magnitude, planning exercise of this magnitude in a long time. And we are going ahead with the EMP, FMP, going away from the normal custom of inviting a consultant to steer us in that direction. So we are going ahead to do it ourselves rather than having a consultant on board, saving us, hopefully, a substantial sum of money, although we would probably work some people to death. I have full belief that people are committed and they would be taking this load willingly so that we can save some of the dollars out there. Finally, earlier this week, I met with our local sheriff, Mr. Bill Pulley. We are talking about having an armed presence on our campus, how we can have a partnership with them. So we talked about some possibilities that if we can have a sheriff's deputy available to our campus and we can offer them an office space, they can convert that into sort of a beat station. So they would not only serve the college campus, but also the adjoining areas of college campus when they're there. Because I cannot imagine a deputy just sitting there in an office for 30 hours a week, and we'll be boring them to death and nobody would like to come there. So if we have a surrounding area that may be fiscally meaningful, we're exploring the possibilities. Let's see what the sheriff's office come back with, because they are also tight with resources. We are also tight with resources. But this being two public agencies, we are not trying to make any money off of each other. It's just how we can help each other in keeping us safe, keeping our campus community safe. So as soon as I hear something more, we will drive the conversation in that direction. That's about it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. So we don't have a sub for Dr. Hoopus, right? So we're just skipping that? Oh, we do. Never mind. Thank you.
Dear members of the Board of Trustees, the following is the October MJC report. The update on student services. The Student Services Division is in the recruitment process for 3 important positions for the campus: Athletic General Counselor, Director of Student Financial Services, and the Dean of Counseling. The counselor and director positions have closed, and we will be inviting candidates to interview during the first few weeks of October. The Project Rebound program has started exceptionally well. The college has begun talks with the Modesto City Jail to begin offering courses at the facility. Academic Senate President Chad Redwing and Dual Enrollment and Instruction Dean Patrick Betancourt are joining Student Services Dean Ashley Griffith in establishing the course offerings, which will ideally begin in spring 2020. The college has streamlined its process for orientation for newly released students leaving the Juvenile Detention Center next door to West Campus. Program specialist Glenn Stovall and Project Rebound coordinator Danica Bravo have worked diligently to improve our relationship with the detention center and ensure that some future students have an opportunity to complete the matriculation process on MJC's campus in an effort to acclimate them to student life. In addition, the college hopes to offer its first course, Guidance 110, within the Juvenile Detention Center this fall. The college's effort to address food insecurity for students are being received favorably by students. Through a collaboration with Second Harvest Food Bank and Starbucks, the college is now able to offer a plethora of Starbucks food to students on Tuesdays from 11 to 1. I'm looking at the date of this, and I think I printed the wrong file because I'm reading things that say early October, and this says September at the top. So I'm going to stop reading because you heard this all last month. And so I'm going to make my apologies to Jim for epically failing to give you his letter. But what I will say, one thing, we just returned from San Antonio, Texas. The board approved a trip for our last Student Success Institute for our Guided Pathways movement, and Jim represented the district and the college very well on a panel with the community college president from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and from South Seattle. And so it was a nationwide panel of presidents, and Jim represented California and our campus in that panel. So thank you all for approving the trip, and I apologize for a very belated repeat.
Well, you,
It's
you
okay.
had me. I didn't
Yeah,
even,
yeah.
you know,
You want me to
so
keep
you were
going,
you were doing a great job. So, yeah.
Actually,
You have a copy?
yeah, Jennifer,
It is
it
the
may
right.
have been written in September, but that was sent to us for his monthly report
Oh,
for
okay.
this month.
Did you all read it?
I did. That's why I knew that.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I won't retract my apology because I apologize for stopping myself. So there we go. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair Biggs,
Yes.
I have one thing that I'd like to, not, you can sit down, Jennifer, but just what's listed on the green page under 5.5, number 2. I promised Professor Emeritus Dr. James Curl that I would announce his, tomorrow, he has a reception for his, at the art gallery for some film images that he have on street art from Modesto, and he would appreciate anyone being able to attend. I just wanted, it's there, but I just wanted to point it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, Dr. Young.
Thank you. All community college districts are required to publish an annual safety report. And we have ours. And I am pleased to call on our Title IX Civil Rights Coordinator, Lloyd Jackson, to give a summary of the report for this year.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For awareness, the Clery Act was originally in 1990. Congress established the Campus Awareness and Campus Safety Act, also known as the Students' Right to Know Act. This was actually an amendment to the 1965 Higher Education Act. That act required all institutions to report on crime statistics and security information to the students at their particular institutions. This act has been amended many, many times over the years since then. In 1998, it was actually changed to the Janine Cleary Disclosure of Campus Security Policy and Campus Crime Statistics Act. I could never have that memorized. In honor of Janine Cleary. She was a student who was raped and murdered in Lehigh University in 1986. The Cleary family since then established the Cleary Institute and began actively pursuing changes at colleges and universities for this purpose. In 2008, the act was expanded to include emergency notification, emergency preparedness to include exercises and drills. In 2013, Section 304 of the Violence Against Women's Act added to the Clery reportable crimes that of domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking, expanding the act even further. There's a lot of obligations that colleges and universities must meet in order to adhere to the regulations within the Clery Act. It's a very, very large, dynamic, and oftentimes confusing set of laws. But each college has to do that and publish it. One of those things that they have to do is publish the annual security report each year by October 1. At its heart, the Clery Act is actually, it's a consumer product information report. That's what it really is. It tells individuals about, it's all about transparency and making sure that folks understand the policies, procedures, operations that are associated with safety and security at the college or university in which they're attending, so that those folks that are there can make better decisions about what is happening. As you can see, the policy, we produced published our annual security report on September 30th. And I know that you've all received copies of those. As you can see, the document actually shows Columbia College in terms of the crimes reported. Columbia College has a very low count of only one actual case of stalking. Modesto Junior College's numbers are actually fairly well, given the student population and location in which the institution exists. That being said, is there any questions concerning the annual security report that I could answer, or the Clery Act?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I will add that the rationale behind the report is to facilitate the consumers, in this case, potential students, from making informed choices by giving them access to crime and other statistics so that they can choose which schools to attend. And that was under the Student Right to Know, the SRTK uh, Act in the past. So, well, thank you for the report. I want to give you an update about the bond, and I'm going to call on Vice Chancellor Yeager.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
No. Okay. It's on. I'll try to speak loud, okay? Okay. So I wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with the bond. The board approved us to move forward with the exploratory phase of a bond measure at its July 10th meeting. And since then, the district has moved forward with engaging a consultant to conduct the bond survey. And to date, there have been several iterations of the survey with input from Columbia College and more to come from MJC. So the survey will be sent by phone or will be done by phone or sent by email to over 600 participants chosen at random. There will be a few more than would be maybe statistically required in Trustee Bulkin's area so that we have a good measure of what those residents are thinking in that area. And so I did want to real quickly review. The purpose of the survey is only to give the district an idea of how receptive the community is to the idea of a bond in November 2020. The survey does not in any way set or prioritize facilities in any way. Instead, it focuses on testing a variety of items, including the type of facilities, tax rate, bond amount, those sorts of things. It also will test opposition questions that may, if we go forward with a bond, that may come up against opponents of the bond campaign. So the survey will test some of those. There will not be a complete list of the bond projects within the bond survey because the lists don't exist yet. Those will be compiled at the campus level over the next several months. So a few facilities are named because they were left over from the prior master plans or because we knew about them, but they're not assigned any greater priority than facilities that may come forward as part of the EMP, FMP process, that it will go on at the campus level. So, and of course, there's also the scheduled maintenance portion of the potential bond. So even if a facility is not listed by name, we covered virtually all facilities types, using general language, including CTE, vocational, physical education, science, technology, classrooms, labs, and improving veterans' educational/career resources and general renovation. So we tried to hit everything because we don't yet have those lists from the campuses. So one item that has come up that I did want to ask the board what their feelings are. We know that we need to fund both the facilities TCO and the IT TCO. The bond funds can be used for some IT items. It's actually fairly, what's the word I want to use, permissive regarding IT items, but particularly when you think about infrastructure that lasts for quite some time rather than maybe thinking about things that seem more disposable. So what I wanted to know is, does the board think it would be prudent at this time to add a couple of questions to the survey regarding IT, regarding technology and things required within the technology TCO?
I have a comment. I'm sorry, I've been a little quiet over here, but good listener. I am absolutely in favor of the more questions on the survey, the better. As I've described here before, on this topic, voters, in my experience, do not like to have paid for something that somehow they weren't aware of. So it's better, always better, to put it out there as a box check that we asked you about IT and if you would support it. It can only help, it can't hurt. So I'm in favor only for the reason that voters, should it be passed and money is decided to be spent on that, the voters don't come back and say,
Yes.
that's not what you said you'd spend the money on.
My question actually, I absolutely agree with you. If we're planning on it, then it absolutely needs to be in the survey. But my question is actually one more of support. We've only spoken about facilities being part of this bond. And so I wanted to get an indication from the board. It doesn't have to be a final decision, but do you have a feeling about technology in the bond? Some boards do.
I have a question. Can you give me an example of the kind of expense, IT expense that the bond could pay for?
Actually, bonds can pay for computers, which I find surprising, but they can also pay for, and I wish,
Infrastructure.
but like switches and stuff that we need.
Servers?
So
And say it again.
Oh, so you have to repeat yourself.
Okay, so, and I'm no IT expert, but from working with Josh in the past, I know some of our switches on campus, our infrastructure for our phone systems are seriously outdated. In fact, over at the Forum Building, for example, if we lose a switch over there, you lose some of the main connectivities to East Campus and it goes down. So switches, infrastructure, upgrades possibly to the data center, our phone systems, the list goes on and on. So there's quite a bit from the infrastructure side from IT.
I don't disagree because IT is going to become more and more critical. I think we're already there, but it's going to become more and more critical. I see what Judy is saying. I mean, we're going to get to a point where we're going to have infrastructure to cool down our servers. They're going to get very complicated. They run very hot. I would caution how far down into the weeds you go with a question on IT, because I think if you start asking people to pay for computers, they're not going to understand that it's for the district infrastructure. They're gonna think in their mind you're buying laptops and iPads for people. I think you need to be very specific on IT infrastructure.
Yes.
That would be my only caution on that.
We can do that. Okay, so the next steps are, I have another meeting at MJC, I think next Monday. We're hopeful that the survey will start toward the end of October, and we'll start to get data at the beginning of November. Meanwhile, there will be, assuming that the results are favorable, if we move forward, there will be a bond committee at each campus, and I'm sure that will dovetail with the EMP and FMP committees at the campus. I think that Judy Lanchester has and I have volunteered to help with the FMP part of this endeavor, and so that's the plan. And then there will be a district-wide bond committee that has representatives from all three sites. And so the recommendations will roll up. So that's how it is supposed to work, and we will update you as soon as we have more information.
So okay, hold on 1 second, because.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, but maybe you're going to answer this. We didn't take a vote. Is the consensus sort of casual that yes on the IT part of the bond?
The only question I have is, I pretty much agree with Derek that I think that we have to be pretty specific because I think the general attitude is that, oh, you're buying a computer that's going to be outdated next month or 2 years from now. So I think you need to be specific on exactly what you're asking for.
Infrastructure, and Tony wasn't feeling well and he had to leave, and I'm sorry because he works in IT.
Yes, yes. I can ask Josh for exactly the types of language, but I think what we would just go for is technology infrastructure to maintain, something of that nature.
Yeah.
But I'm also, some boards and some people, I might be one of them, has difficulty using 30-year money to buy a 3-year laptop. And it is legal with the idea that, oh, you pay that off within the first 3 years. But to me, that's a little bit like saying, well, you have a 5-year car loan and you paid off the tires in the first year. So we will stick with the infrastructure, and we'll build it around that.
Okay.
We'll put in a couple of questions.
I
would
think
think that,
rather than a vote, we would give general consensus, not to tie you down to anything. I think.
Yeah. Nancy?
Okay.
Sorry, Nancy.
I would think that the IT could also include like a cybersecurity portion of funding, which is, I think, on everybody's mind right now and might just be a added plus on the survey.
I'm not sure that we don't already have that in there, but I will double check. I seem to recall, but I could be wrong. So you're right. We'll make sure that gets in there.
Yeah. And Anne?
I have a question, comment. It's not about IT. So if Abe wants to say something about IT, I'll wait and come back.
No, I finished.
Oh, okay. Am I correct that the state has decided to put a $15 billion education bond on the ballot?
I forget the total amount, but yes, a bond will be on the March ballot, and community colleges is included in that bond. To the extent that we are building, we won't be able to build anything growth that would meet the requirements, but if we build smart and efficiently, we may be able to include some of our remodel projects if we have a bond, because they are now including, my understanding is they're moving forward to include a required match.
So the state would go on the March?
Yes, and we would be on
Okay.
November.
Then I was going to say something if they're both on the same ballot. So.
I wish, but yeah, it was the time was too short, so. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to give an update regarding the District Director of Public Safety. We have received applications, and the committee is in the process of being formed. The same can be said for the Vice Chancellor of Educational Support Services. I want to mention that both positions are listed as open until filled. So in anticipation of the committee's meeting and doing the work, I want to thank the constituent leaderships from the various constituencies for sending representatives to the selection committees for these two positions. I want to give a quick update regarding my meetings with local school districts in Gustine, Newman, and Patterson, in which I was joined by Trustee DiMartini. I also met with the superintendent in Oakdale, and I will be having follow-up meetings with him. And the goal of all these meetings is to facilitate dual enrollment and other collaboration between either MJC or Columbia. And for Oakdale, which is served by Columbia College, the district is very excited at the prospects of perhaps hosting a class at one of its two high schools. So I will continue to give you an update on that effort in reaching out to the area school districts. As you know, we have a parking lot that is being remodeled. It's closed. I just want to mention that it's requiring our students and some staff who typically use a park there to find an alternative parking spot. But I'm glad to report that our new parking lot at the side of the building, which has ample space, it's feeling the need of being the overflow from that parking lot. And of course, we hope and look forward to speedy completion so that we can have a facility that's nearer to the other buildings where instructions is taking place, and it will be more convenient for our students and our employees. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on to 5.7. The grant activity is just presented as an FYI. And on to 6.1, the consent items. Yes?
On 5.7, just the notation that you see highlighted at the bottom. That was in response to the request that was made at the last meeting for additional information, knowing whether
Okay.
it's reoccurring or new. So it's highlighted on this version, but
Thank you.
will not be in future, but the reference will be there.
Okay.
So Madam Chair, with respect to item 6.1, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items as listed 6.2 through 6.14 with trustee Rojas recognizing our retirements.
You have us trained.
Before the vote, though, I'd like to recognize Marty Brewer with 40 years of service as the Information Systems Support Specialist. And I was going to try to top that, but I'm not going to run for reelection. So I second it. So.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, so any abstentions? So the motion carries. I would like to make one small request. And we talked earlier about the grant that for the consultant. It would be nice if the purchase order somehow indicated that that was a grant. How does the rest of the board feel? I mean, it would just provide clarity.
I would agree with that.
So if that's possible, whoever does the purchase orders, I think that would prevent some confusion from time to time. Okay. Going on to, I have to turn a bunch of pages. By the way, I noticed that Reno is the happening place for conferences. Okay, I believe we are up to 7.1.
Madam Chair, with respect to item 7.1, I recommend that the Board of Trustees, A, acknowledge receipt of the Yosemite Faculty Association and Yosemite Community College District's bargaining proposal reopeners as attached to the October 9, 2019 Board agenda. B, conduct a public hearing on the proposals and refer the proposals to administrative staff.
All right, so I believe we have a motion. Should I hold the hearing first, however?
Second.
Okay, second from Abe. All right, so let me have, the hearing is open. Is there any public comment on these openers? The hearing is closed. All in favor of Darren's motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The motion has carried. All right. There's some confusion about 7.2, the voting delegates, as to whether we vote